Good evening. This is Mary Ellen McKay,
Recording
Chair
in progress.
of the City of Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment, and this is the August 9th, 2022 Zoning Board meeting. This evening's meeting will be conducted in a hybrid format. The meeting is accessible in person in the third floor auditorium of the Nashua City Hall, 229 Main Street, and via Zoom at the link posted in all public meeting agendas. Attendance via telephone is available using the Zoom connection details. Minutes of tonight's meeting, as well as audio and video recordings, will be available later at nashuanh.gov/agenda center. Select Zoning Board of Adjustment. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-589-3056, and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. The chair is in control of the proceedings and calls upon all who wish to speak in order as their raised hands are observed. The board follows the meeting protocols procedures identified in its bylaws. The applicant will present their case for 15 minutes, followed by questions by the board. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor or with questions or opposition will be asked to speak for up to 5 minutes. If there are questions or opposition, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present a response. Finally, one and only one person with questions or an opposition will be permitted to speak again before the board deliberates and determines an outcome. A timer is used to manage speaking time. Kate Poirier, our zoning board coordinator, will notify us when 1 minute is remaining and again when the speaker's time has expired. If you are participating by Zoom and wish to speak when public input is requested, please use the raised hand option, which can be found under Reactions on a computer or the More menu on a phone. The chair will call you in turn. Please use the lower hand option when you have completed your questions, comments. Please mute your microphone until called to speak. Note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Tonight, we will be hearing requests for deviation from the Nashua Zoning Board in the form of applications for special exceptions, variances, and there is one that is an equitable waiver, which we will have our deputy planning manager speak to when I've completed this portion. A special exception is the request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. To grant a special exception, 5 points of law are required to be met. These are outlined in the application and will be summarized in board motions. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that ordinance does not permit. Variances also have 5 points of law to be met, different from those for special exceptions. Per the City of Nashua bylaws and State of New Hampshire revised statutes, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, this board will hear all scheduled cases if a quorum of 3 voting board members is present at this meeting. Any citizen has the right to contest the decision that this board makes. Should we render a decision that you believe is in error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received by the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the date of decision. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. Please contact Mr. Falk of the Planning Department for more information. For this meeting, we have the following full board members in attendance. We have our Vice Chair, Mr. Steve Lionel. We have Mr. J.P. Boucher, a commission member, and we have myself, Mary Ellen McKay, as the chair. In addition, we also have Mr. Carter Falk, our deputy planning manager, and Ms. Kate Poirier, our zoning coordinator. Tonight, we only have 3 members, and we are all permanent members. There are no alternates here this evening. Mr. Falk, before I take a roll call, would you like to explain the equitable waiver, and then again, once that case comes up, and refreshing people's mind? This is something very different.
Sure, Madam Chair. As the board knows, a vast majority of all your cases are variances, and special exceptions. We also hear appeals and rehearings, and also equitable waivers. An equitable waiver is not something that's in our land use code per se, but it is in the RSAs, and it's RSA 674:33A. And to meet the qualifications of an equitable waiver, there's 4 points of law that really need to be approved. The first one is that the violation, and it's generally a dimensional type of a violation, something in a setback or something built too high or too tall. It has to be discovered by an owner or agent or somebody, municipal official, generally after the work has been completed or substantially completed. And you can't turn around and go back and remove it all. The second one is that it was not something that you've failed to address as far as the code. In other words, you can't know what the code is and you just do it anyway and hope to not get caught. It has to be a good faith, honest mistake, if you will, of something that it was just a mistake, an oversight. The third one is that, now I'm just paraphrasing this a little bit. The third one is that whatever the violation is, it can't constitute a public or a private nuisance. It can't impact anybody's property values in a negative fashion, and can't affect the future or present uses of the property. The last one is that due to the degree of construction or investment made in the violation, that the cost to bring it into code far outweighs the violation. So all of those issues will have to be addressed by the applicant, and they're well versed in doing so. Our staff has also looked over this case very closely with the applicant, and we believe that this was the proper method to have them come before the board tonight.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And in keeping with the roll call, Mr. Steve Lionel.
Present.
Mr. J.P. Boucher.
Present.
And Mary Ellen McKay. I am also here, and Mr. Carter Falk and Ms. Kate Poirier. Mr. Falk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are 3, Madam Chair. 45 Langholm and 7 Meredith have been tabled from previous meetings. They will both not be on tonight. They will be both tabled to the August 23rd meeting, which is our next meeting. There is also a case for 18 to 30 Gillis Street that will not be heard tonight. It's been tabled to the September 14th meeting of this year.
Thank you very
much. It will not
much.
be heard tonight.
So I will then read our first case into the record. Owner John Andrew Orr Skirvin, I apologize for killing it if I'm doing that, and Robert Skirvin Orr, address 27 Scott Avenue. John Andrew Orr Skirvin and Robert Skirvin Orr, owners, 27 Scott Avenue, Sheet B, Lot 302, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit in basement. This is in the R18 zone in Ward 8. Is there somebody here to present this case? And again, I apologize if I killed your name.
No, you actually did it perfect. So, yeah, Orr Skirvin. And I'm not sure exactly what to go through, but I guess I can give an overview, and we submitted the plan. We had a building permit to finish the basement in...
Oh,
What's the name and address?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Boucher. I apologize. I was away, missed a couple meetings, so you forget. Easy. Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, John Orr Skirvin at 27 Scott Ave in Nashua, New Hampshire. So we had done a building permit to finish the basement in February of 2020, so like right when COVID hit the first time. And then so we took time and got the basement finished. And in the original plans, it was to have kind of a bedroom area, a family room with a kitchen/kitchenette, and a bathroom to add to the property. And then there's an unfinished portion of the basement, which hasn't changed at all. And so on the original submission, we didn't understand the difference with kitchen versus kitchenette. And so on final inspection, the inspector said everything was fine, but the stove part of the kitchen/kitchenette needed to have the special exception request for the accessory dwelling unit. So it's been inspected electrical, plumbing, and finished carpentry, and the plan is here. So we do have a stove in the basement that is an induction stove, so that it's not like gas or a hot surface area. A refrigerator and a sink and that sort of thing. And the HVAC had been done by the original contractor who finished the house, so the HVAC was already in the basement. So those pieces have been done. The plan, I know I draw up the plan and the square footage, and your offices were very helpful going through all the requirements of what an accessory dwelling unit is, and I read through all of those pieces and the maximum square footage, which we're under, and that it has to have doors that separate it from the main part of the house and that piece as well. So I guess that's the main piece. The windows and doors were already in, and it's a walkout basement, full walkout with grade. It's flat grade to the outside with windows in every room. So.
And the parking?
We have 2 inside, and we have 3 parking spaces in our paved driveway. So we're not adding any parking, but yeah, I remember that was on the list too.
And you mentioned the points of law, the accessory dwelling units for them, the 9 points of law. So you are attesting that you agree to all of these 9 points of law?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Just need that for the record. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
No?
Crickets. Okay, we're good. You can have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this application? I don't see anything. Is there anyone here who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? See none. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Lionel.
I have no objections whatsoever to this. I support the application.
Mr. Boucher.
I also support the application. It's pretty thorough, pretty straightforward. And again, the applicant attested to the accessory dwelling unit special regulations, so I'm all set with it.
Thank you. And I concur with my fellow board members. I support the application, have no comments. Would somebody, certainly, thank you, Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special exception for John Andrew Orr Skirvin and Robert Skirvin Orr, owners of 27 Scott Avenue, Sheet B, Lot 302, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit in basements, R18 zone, Ward A. We find that it is listed in table uses. We find it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. We find it will not overload public water drainage or sewer and other municipal systems. We find that the accessory dwelling unit special regulations are fulfilled as attested by the applicant. We find it will not impair the integrity or be out of character of the neighborhood or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents. So again, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
And I'll second.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lionel. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. So that is 3 votes in the affirmative. That's passes. Mr. Orr Skirvin, John, congratulations. Your application has been granted. And as we will state throughout this meeting, anyone has 30 days with which to challenge any decision made by this board. But other than that, thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough, and good luck with your project. And you are free to stay or go as you wish. I'll read case number 2. Virgil Saperteza, 107 Westford Drive. Virgil Saperteza, owner, 107 Westwood Drive, Sheet B, Lot 844, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit in basement. It's in the R9 zone and Ward 5. And I'm assuming you are Mr. Virgil Zaperteza or Tiza?
Zaperteza.
Thank you. If you would just clearly state your name and address for the record.
Sure, I'm Virgil Zaperteza, and address is 1007 Westwood Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Yes, currently I have a basement. There is a living space, but I'd like to finish it off for my parents. They'd like to move in. I'd like to just create a small bathroom and a kitchen area, and it is in line with the 9 points. I agree to that. And as you can see through the drawing, it's pretty straightforward. No real deviations from the actual plot on the ground. And pending your questions.
There's one question I have. I don't see it, so it could be me just missing it, but how many square feet? What's the square footage on the unit itself?
It should be 720 if it's 30 by 24.
Oh, thank you.
720.
Quick math.
Quick math. Also, it was logic. Thank you, Mr. Boucher. You're good.
I'm good.
Okay, fine. Any questions?
Nope.
No.
We're good.
Awesome. Short, quick.
You may have a seat. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone?
Mr. Falk has
Oh,
a
I was
Mr.
just going to
Falk.
say, there's an email.
Oh, there was?
Yes.
It's at the end of the application.
There's an email from Leo Driscoll at 26 Weathersfield Road, directly behind the applicant, and they have no objections of adding the in-law.
Thank you. That's I missed that. Okay, so we did have one.
Just one.
Public in support. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of the application? I don't see any communicating, okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? I don't see any. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher.
I fully support the application. Again, we meet all the criteria. There's no issues there. It's in the basement. And again, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Mr. Lionel.
I also support the application.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay. I also support the application. And again, the applicant did attest to the accessory dwelling unit regulations. Thank you, Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special exception for Virgil Zaportiza, owner of 107 Westwood Drive, Sheet B, Lot 844, requesting a special exception from Land Use Code, Section 19-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit in the basement, CR9 Zone Ward 9. We find it is listed in the table of uses. We find it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. We find that it will not overload public water, drainage, or sewer, or other municipal systems. We find that the accessory dwelling unit special regulations are fulfilled and attested to by the applicant. We find that it will not impair the integrity or be out of character of the neighborhood or be detrimental to health, morals, or welfare of the residents. So again, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel. Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. Mr. Zaportiza? Congratulations, your application has been granted. Thank you for your presentation this evening. As we will continue to state throughout the evening, any decision made by this board can be challenged, can be appealed. Should you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please refer back to either Mr. Falk or Ms. Poirier in the planning department. Other than that, thank you very much for your presentation and good luck with your project. And you may stay or you may leave as you wish. Mr. Falk, we are now going to come up to case 3 with the equitable waiver. And so do you need to state anything prior to it, or should I leave it to Attorney Westgate? And before I even begin that, let the record show that Mr. Matt Sullivan, who is the Community Development Director, is here.
I gave a brief overview of what an equitable waiver is, and I believe Attorney Westgate and his team is well-versed to go over this.
Okay, then I will read the case into the record. Description: Edgestone Properties Incorporated, Thomas Nathan Tessier, trustee of the TNT Realty Trust, Morrow A. and Janet L. Acamazo, Brian P. and Yvonne A. Brady, Gordon C. and Doris A. Rollins, owners, 35 Groton Road, units 14, 22, 24, and 25, Sheet D, Lot 35, requesting equitable waiver pursuant to RSA 674:33-A, relative to Land Use Code Section 190-115D, to allow 7 constructed septic systems, each servicing an existing single-family home, to be located within 125 feet of a wetland, with all located more than 75 feet from a wetland. This is in the R40 zone and in Ward 5. And Attorney Westgate, if you would state your name and address for the record, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Brad Westgate. I'm a lawyer for Weiner & Bennett, 111 Concord Street here in Nashua, representing Edgestone Properties, Inc., which is the prime applicant for the equitable waiver application. Just to note, Madam Chair, with me are Jaron Slattery and Dave Petropoulos of Edgestone. Jim Petropoulos of Hayner Swanson Project Engineering Firm is also with me. On Zoom are several of the co-applicants who are unit owners at Terrell Farm Condominium. And also on Zoom are Bill Evans and Jim Gove. They're our consulting engineer and certified wetland and certified soil scientist. Gove is the certified scientist, and Mr. Evans, the engineer, who've submitted written reports to you in connection with this application. I appreciate Mr. Falk explaining the nature of the equitable waiver. It's not a common application before you, I know, but it was a nice job done by him.
It was.
So in this case, Madam Chair, what we have is we're seeking an equitable waiver to allow 7 existing constructed septic systems at Terrell Farm Condominium to stay in place. These systems were all approved, both state and local, for construction and operation. But what happened was, it was discovered after construction and approvals were issued, that they were situated within 125 feet of the edge of wetland, which turns out to be contradictory to one of the provisions in the land use code. Hence, we're here for the equitable waiver. We're not here for a variance or a special exception, of course. We had talked to Community Development Division about the appropriate application of file, and it seemed this to be the appropriate one, because it's a condition that was built in good faith, not with, in violation and intent to be within this 125-foot setback, but done in a manner that both the applicant, engineer, and code officials, state and local, did not discover was problematic. So it fits within the equitable waiver criteria. I'll address the 4 criteria with these circumstances in the background, but I thought I'd just give a little more information. There's an aerial photo that is probably worth noting for just a moment, just to give you a sense of where Terrell Farm is. And it's here's the colored one there. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. So, yeah, it's, see if it pops up. Okay. So, Terrell Farm is on the north side of Groton Road as you're heading out. You go past the Udicki Farm, Udicki Fields, and a bit beyond that is where the property is located. Some of you may have driven by there and seen the development in progress. It consists of 25 units. It's in the condominium form of ownership. That's how the planning board approved it. So there's 25 single-family detached units that are being built. Many of them are already fully constructed. 7 closings have occurred, 5 of which involve these 7 septic systems. 2 of the 7 septic systems, those 2 units closings are still pending, but they're under agreement to close. If you now take a look at the next slide that we have, which is a schematic that is very much like the one we submitted with our application. Hayner Swanson prepared this exhibit to show where the septic systems are, in particular the leach fields. So if you take a look at this, you'll see a red dotted line. That's the 125-foot radius from edge of wetland. It's in a couple different locations, as you can see. The darker line is a 75-foot state setback from wetland. That's inside the red line. And then if you take a look at the blue and green leach field locations, those are the locations of the 7 leach fields that are the subject, 7 systems that are the subject of this application. So you can see that they're closer than 125 feet to the edge of wetland, but further, with one minor exception I'll describe, more than 75 feet from the wetland, the state requirement. I mentioned a minor exception. If you take a look at Unit 14 in the upper right, I want to make the record very clear about this. You'll notice that there's a very small corner of that leach field that is just inside the 75-foot state setback requirement. This was noted after we had submitted the application, hence I want to make the record very clear. It turns out that the wetland in that area is known as a poorly drained soil, and therefore the state requirement is only 50 feet from edge of wetland, not 75. The reports that Mr. Gove and Mr. Evans submitted in connection with our application, which I'll address momentarily, come to conclusions that the 125-foot setback is not necessary from a scientific perspective to protect wetlands in the context of not causing a public or private nuisance. We'll get to that criteria. What we did was we asked Mr. Evans, who's a professional engineer, subsurface expert, to give his thoughts on whether this minor encroachment, if you will, into the 75-foot setback was problematic. He indicated in an email yesterday to Mr. Petropoulos that we've submitted with our documentation tonight before you, that he did not see that that is changing his opinion. His opinion still stood that no private or public nuisance is derived from the placement of these systems within 125 feet of the edge of wetland. This is an ongoing project, of course, Madam Chair, and we understand, and it's incumbent upon Edgestone, and it's their responsibility to be sure that the other 18 systems are in compliance with the city requirements. 4 of those systems had been redesigned from when we first submitted the application. We identified them in our initial schematic, so they've been redesigned to go out of the 125-foot setback. So, but for any other relief we would have to seek before you, it's Edgestone's understanding and commitment to make certain that the design and construction of the other systems do comply with the city requirement. In Terrell Farm condominium, the unit owners have individual responsibility to maintain their particular systems. It's not a common requirement of the association to maintain, but because of the way this was designed, each home had its own system, therefore each unit owner would maintain his own system. That's why we have 5 parties who've joined in this application, 4 at the time we submitted and 1 that we confirmed last week, because they've closed on 5 of these 7 units and therefore are co-applicants, because it's very much in their interest that we are able to bring this to a good resolution. A couple other thoughts and then the 4 criteria. This project was approved through both zoning and planning in the context of the necessary land use approvals. It also obtained the necessary state approvals. At any point during this process, the 125-foot concern was never materialized. It just wasn't seen or on anyone's radar, if you will. I won't detail the application processes that we went through, but they are listed in our application. So really, as a practical matter, what happened was Edgestone, its engineers, and the state and local reviewing authorities just simply didn't have, as I mentioned, the 125-foot setback provision on their radar. Mr. Falk noted what the 4 criteria for the granting of an equitable waiver are, and let me try to run through them if I may. The first one, in essence, is that the violation, meaning the setback violation in this case, was not discovered or noticed by any owner, former owner, agent, representative, municipal official until the structure in violation of it substantially completed. And that's what happened here. We gave you an example, for instance, of how we processed a septic approval, both state and local for construction, and then approval by state for operation for Unit 25. And if you noted in that one example in our application, you saw how it went through the approval processes first with the city. What happens is a builder, a developer submits a septic system application to the city looks it over, approves it locally, sends it off directly to DES, at the state, they review it and then make that approval. That happened in all these cases. It went through that approval process effectively without discovering this particular concern. And then the systems were built, still without any knowledge of the 125-foot setback concern. I think that the reason this happened essentially boils down to the following. Everyone in this field, all the professionals who do work in septic system design, the engineers, even the builders, the installers, the state and local review authorities, I think they're focused on the 75-foot and perhaps in other cases 50-foot state setback requirements. They're not really focused on the city requirement. The 125-foot setback requirements in our land use code, but there are other provisions, not only in the land use code, but outside of the land use code that govern septic system design and the approval processes, and they don't correlate into the 125-foot requirement. So the people working in the field just don't see it. It just doesn't come on their radar, as I note. And I think in this case, the sequence of events bears it out. What happened here was Hayner Swanson, when working on an unrelated project after the approvals for these systems were granted, noted the 125-foot setback requirement in the land use code. They were puzzled about whether and how that should be interpreted given the other aspects of the code as well as the state requirements. So they brought the matter to Corporation Counsel's attention. Corporation Counsel then interacted with the Community Development Division. It was then brought to Edgestone's attention because Hayner-Swanson knew that Edgestone had these 7 systems that were within the 125-foot setback. Edgestone communicated with me. We then met with Community Development staff, Mr. Falk, Mr. Sullivan in particular, self-disclosed this problem, told them what had happened, and then started to sort out what's the best way to deal with it, how is it to be handled, and that's how we went into the equitable waiver analysis. So it was the first time that we were aware of it and that Community Development Division was aware of this problem after construction and after the question was raised by Hayner-Swanson, cued from another project. The second criteria is that the violation was not in an outcome of ignorance of the law or the ordinance of failure to inquire, obstruct, obfuscate, or misrepresent, or on bad faith. And as I've noted, the people involved in this, including the state and local officials, were just unaware of the potential applicability of the 125-foot setback requirement. The land use permits and approvals had already been granted, and specifically the approvals for these 7 systems have been granted and they've been built. I communicated with Mr. Sullivan about this, and I summarized in an email to him in late July what had happened. He was already aware of the situation, of course. And I suggested to him that this situation involved a good faith error in measurement or ordinance interpretation. Mr. Sullivan replied to my email on July 26, and he concurred with my opinion that a good faith error in ordinance interpretation occurred in processing these permits. I believe you have a copy of that email exchange, and I've highlighted the reply Mr. Sullivan provided me regarding his similar conclusion that a good faith error had occurred all around.
1 minute.
The third criteria, Madam Chair, if I may continue, is that the...
Yes, Kate, did you want to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry.
She said 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute.
Oh, pardon me. I'm sorry. Thank you. I was
Okay.
looking for the clock and didn't notice it. I'm sorry. The last 2 criteria, that the violation doesn't constitute a public or private nuisance. We submit that that's been demonstrated by the nature of the state requirements themselves, those setbacks, but also proven out by Mr. Gove and Mr. Evans in their written testimony and the opinions they've rendered. It also, that criteria also indicates that we're not interfering or adversely affecting present or private or future uses of the property. The systems where they're located don't affect the functionality of Terrell Farm. It's been laid out and approved by the planning board that way. The last criteria is that the degree of past construction and investment make it such that the cost of construction to reconstruct and correct significantly outweighs any public benefit to be gained. This would be extraordinarily difficult to redo. If you take a look at that laid out schematic we had, you'll see that the land mass between these particular units and the wetland can accommodate the units and the 75-foot setback, but it can't accommodate the 125-foot one. And given this good faith situation that occurred, we would submit that to redo this, to fully reconstruct these systems, somehow relocate them, even if possible, which would be very difficult, would be an extraordinary cost. And there's no public benefit to be gained when the result is not problematic in the context of a public or private nuisance. We thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you.
And happy to answer questions.
I wasn't paying attention to the clock. It was very interesting. Sorry, Kate. Does anyone have any questions for Attorney Westgate?
I do not.
Mr. Boucher? No questions. It was pretty thorough, and we do have a stack of documentation. Thank you very much for that, by the way. So
Thank you,
we
Madam.
have it all here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of the application? I see nothing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? I see nothing. Then seeing.
Hello.
What?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, I have something I would like to speak about this application.
You would like to speak in opposition to this application?
That is correct.
Then could you please state your name and address for the record?
Certainly, my name is Fred Whitehead. Shown on the screen right now is Fred W. And my address with my wife Heidi is at 29-31 Harvard Street. We live at 31 on the second floor.
Okay.
Okay, I see my screen here. I lost the screen. Maybe that's because I'm talking. Okay. I went over the paperwork, waiting for this to start. Had a lot of difficulty trying to get into Zoom. So forgive me for being late, please. But this statement had a couple of material errors in it. It says it's on a lot which is 9.5 acres. That says 0.953 acres, not 9.5. There are 32 parking spaces that it says that it is providing in that diagram. I have gone through and counted them, and they are only come up to 28, I believe. I have a note here.
Okay, but I think what I'm going to ask you, sir, is you're talking about acreage and parking places, and we're talking about septic systems. What is your objection, sir, to the septic systems and the issue that state and local, all officials, nobody saw this? This was an error by omission and not a purposeful error.
My apologies. I thought you had finished this one and you had moved on to the property on Gillis Street.
No, sir.
Well, tell them that case has been.
Okay, so then you don't wish to speak in anything to do with this case?
That is correct. My apologies.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Fred, actually, that case has been tabled to the September 14th meeting and won't be on tonight anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. So, again, I'm going to clarify for the record. Would anyone on Zoom have any questions, comments, concerns, or objection to the Etchstone Properties application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Lionel.
I have no comments. Attorney Westgate explained it very clearly and thoroughly.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher.
I too appreciate Attorney Westgate's explanation. Very clear, and again, left me with no questions at all.
Thank you. I concur with my fellow board members. Was really detailed, really something that in all my years sitting here, this is the first time I've heard something like this. But it seems that through nobody's fault, because there certainly were tons of checks and balances, this happened. So I am, no questions, I'm in support of the application.
Make a motion.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the equitable waiver for Edgestone Properties Incorporated, Thomas Nathan Tessier, trustee of TNT Realty Trust, Mauro A. and Janet L. Acamazzo, I apologize, Brian P. and Yvonne A. Brady, Gordon C. and Doris A. Rollins, owners, 35 Groton Road, units 14, 22, 24, and 25, sheet D, lot 35, requesting an equitable waiver pursuant to RSA 674:33-A relative to Land Use Code Section 190-15, Section D, to allow 7 constructed septic systems, each servicing an existing single-family home, to be located within 125 foot of a wetland, which all located more than 75 feet from a wetland. It's in the R40 zone, Ward 5. We find that the violation was not noticed or discovered by any owner, former owner, owner's agent, or representative, or municipal official until the structure in violation had been substantially completed, or until after a lot of other division of land or in violation had been subdivided by conveyance. Again, the applicant described the fact that the septic design had been had gone through the city process and the state DES process, and not recognizing at all the city's 125-foot requirement for a wetland buffer. We find that the violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law or the ordinance, failure to inquire, obfuscation, misrepresentation, or bad faith on the part of the owner or owner's agent or representative, but was instead caused by either a good faith error in measurement or by error in ordinance interpretation or applicability made by a municipal official in the process or issuing a permit. We find that the physical or dimensional violation does not constitute a public or private nuisance, nor diminish the value of other property in the area, nor interfere with or adversely affect any present or future uses of the property. We also find that due to the degree of the past construction or investment made in ignorance of the facts constitute a violation, the cost of correction so far outweighs any public benefit to be gained that it would be inequitable or to require the violation to be corrected. So again, I make a motion to approve the equitable waiver.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. That's a unanimous decision. Attorney Westgate, congratulations. The equitable waiver has been granted. As you well know, anyone can challenge a decision made by the board within 30 days. But other than that, any questions, comments, please refer back to Mr. Falk or Ms. Poirier. And thank you. Thank you. Very complete application. Good. We're going to move on to case number 4.
See you later.
It's number 5, actually.
Oh, yeah, number 5, actually,
Hope your capital's better.
because we have 4.
8 Missouris.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to, case number 4. Case number 4. 18. No, this is different on this.
Yeah, yes, it's different.
Okay,
8
that's,
Missouris is the
all
right
right.
one.
They have it listed backwards on the
Yes.
sheets.
Yeah, I went over that with Kate earlier.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Keith and Kimberly Gerard, owners, 8 Missouris Drive, Sheet B, Lot 1396, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 6 feet into the 20-foot required side yard setback to construct an attached 22 by 28 square foot second-story addition over garage approved by ZBA on 5/24/2016. Also requesting to amend special condition that the garage be a single-level garage. This is in the R18 zone, Ward 8. Sir, please state your name and address for the record.
Keith Gerard, 8 Missouris Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062.
Thank you. The floor is yours, and as Kate has reminded us, you have 15 minutes to present your case.
All right. I don't think mine will be quite as complicated as the previous one.
You never can tell.
So back in 2016, I was approved to encroach 6 feet into the 20-foot boundary for a single-story garage, two-car garage, which has been built. What I'm hoping to do now is build a second story for my mother-in-law. My father-in-law passed away earlier this year, so I'm hoping that she can move in with us. It's not an in-law apartment, it'll just be a bedroom and a bathroom, closet, and a small laundry room. And that's really it. The square footage will be the same size as the garage, so it's about 600 square feet. Once completed, the second story will be level with the kind of second story of the middle section of my house that you can see in the pictures that I provided, so it shouldn't look out of place or anything of that nature.
Does anyone have any questions?
I mean,
Mr.
I wasn't on the board at the time, Mr. Boucher was.
As was myself.
It's, do you recall why the board stipulated a single story? I mean, sometimes I know we do that just to make sure that what's built is what was applied for, but.
I don't think it was stipulated. I just believe I had put that in the application as a single-story garage.
Well, it was a special condition of your variance. The motion said special condition garage to be a single-level garage. So what you're asking for is a variance to be excused from that. And I understand that.
Okay.
I just was wondering if there was any particular discussion as to why that condition was put into place. Mr. Boucher, do you have any recollection? I mean, it was 6 years ago, so.
Yes, I do. Mr. Shaw's not here, so I won't speak for him, but I do remember and I do recall, sometimes we do this where Mr. Shaw will always bring that fact up because he's looking to see what the scale of the impact of the structure. And I think, some things have changed since 2016, but I think the concern was what was actually being built, to be very clear what was being allowed. And I think at the time, we were also cognizant of neighbors and, what that impact may be, because we did have cases, we've had cases in the past, I think you've been here somewhere, neighbors would be like, oh, this big thing, and then sometimes I've been here where applicants have promised not to put windows on that side, that type of thing. But I think that kind of was, one of the things I think that may be on his mind. But again, Mr. Shaw is not here. That's what I could think of at the time, and as stated by the applicant, he stated that he wasn't looking for anything at the time. So I think it was, it was obviously, not okay with the applicant. It's just what we presented, and that's what we approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
And, yeah, I'm going to go along with Mr. Boucher. I think, and in reading this too, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Shaw, but a lot of times, if an applicant makes a statement, when any of us make a motion, and we hear that statement, we re-refer to the statement, and it was attested to in the testimony that it would be a single family. So I could understand why maybe we went that way, or maybe we were afraid of the height.
That's right. I missed that you were also there, Mrs. McKay. So
Yeah, that's
sorry.
okay. I haven't been here as long as Mr. Boucher, so I'm just going to acquiesce to that.
So I don't have any questions other than that.
And do you have any questions other than that, Mr.
No,
Lionel?
no.
Okay, there are no further questions, so you may take a seat or you may stay there as you wish. Seeing there's nobody here in the room, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of the application by the Gerards on 8 Missouri Drive? Well, I don't see one.
There's one person called in, I don't know who that is, though.
They're for the next case.
That's the,
Either this case or the next case.
oh, okay. That's why they're not here. Okay, I get it. Well, seeing none, there's nobody here to speak in opposition. Is there anybody on Zoom who has any questions, comments, concern, or opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher.
I'm in full support of the application. Number one is, obviously, there's nobody here to oppose it, so again, it's not an impactful addition to, to the neighbor, there's been no complaints there, but other than that, I think it's reasonable. You can drive around neighborhoods and see this type of addition over garages, so, it's not uncommon, so I'm going to support the application.
Thank you. Mr. Lionel.
I also support the application.
And I also support the application for all the aforementioned reasons. Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance for Keith and Kimberly Gerard, owners of 8 Mazoris Drive, Sheet B, Lot 1396, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 6 feet into the 20-foot required right side yard setback to construct an attached 22 by 28-foot second-story addition over the garage, approved by the ZBA on 5/24/2016. Also requesting to amend special condition that the garage be a single-level garage. It's in R18 Zone Ward 8. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, we approved this garage back in 2016, and the applicant is just looking to build above the garage a reasonable addition that is, we find that would be a common type of a building addition on this type of a home. We find it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find that it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. We find that it's not contrary to public interest, and we find that substantial justice will be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. That is a unanimous vote. Mr. Gerard, congratulations. Your variance has been granted. And as we've stated, anyone can appeal any decision made by this board. They have up to 30 days. Should you have any questions, comments, concerns, please refer back to either Mr. Carter Falk or Ms. Kate Warrior in the planning department. Other than that, congratulations and good luck with your project.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Take
for your
care.
application. Okay. Case number 6. Sean and Lauren Nelson, owners, 35 Sullivan Street, Sheet 61, Lot 112, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-17E to exceed maximum driveway width, a maximum of 24 feet permitted, 12 feet existing on Amherst Street. An additional 12-foot wide curb opening proposed on Amherst Street, leading to a 60-foot wide driveway located within the front yard setback. This is in the RA Zone, Ward 2. Is there someone on Zoom who would like to present this application?
Yes, hi, I'm John
Could-
Nelson from 35 Sullivan Street.
Thank you. You have 15 minutes with which to present your case, sir.
Sure. I apologize, I had every intention of being there with you all in person, but my son decided to go over his handlebars head first, and we just got out of the emergency room, so he's fine, broken collarbone, but
I'm sorry, I hope he's fine.
yes, hopefully he's fine, he's 12, it'll happen. So my apologies for not being there in person. I've been listening in, and the audio on my end has been in and out, so if they need me to repeat something, please let me know.
Thank you.
As the application states, so I'll just run down the list here. If you're familiar with where the property is, using the 5 points, I would say not contrary to public interest, just simply by our location and proximity to some large driveway areas between Rite Aid, the Merrimack Auto, a few multi-unit properties, our driveway will not be contrary to what is going on in and around our proximity. In the world of spirit of ordinance, this really was born out of safety. My 16-year-old daughter will soon be licensed and pulling on and off of Amherst Street has become a challenge as us as adults, and we just have actual fear that our young driver will inadvertently cause danger to herself and the general public. We've had plenty of close calls ourselves between the speed of Amherst Street and our current technique to get in and out of our driveway. When it goes to justice for the property owner, I'd say go back to that general public safety. This will create a much safer environment. We currently park during the daytime on Sullivan Street, but this will allow us to use our property and our property only with the vehicles. It will not diminish the value of our property or any surrounding properties, and as you see in the last page of that application, will actually increase the green space overall in the on the property, and most definitely usable space. And then in the unnecessary hardship, I'll just go back to safety, and we've got real concern that we knew we're getting ourselves into when we bought our property on Amherst Street. We didn't know about the setbacks of the corner lot, so we've learned all those things during this process, and hope that we can be approved for the variance this evening.
Thank you. Does somebody here, does any member of the board have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Lionel.
Actually, my question is for Mr. Falk. The first time we saw this application, although we didn't hear the case, it had talked about the driveway being 60 feet wide, and this variance application is for 24 feet of pavement. And I understand that this is sort of creating a semicircle shaped driveway, although it's with right angles. Can you talk about how the city views this and why the description of it changed?
Well, the ordinance allows a width of no more than 24 feet, and that's from the front property line to the front setback line. So the front setback line being 25, Kate, if you want to bring that back up. So that front setback line was that yellow line. So the width of the driveway would be 60 feet, and all of that is within the front yard setback. Even though there's two curb cuts, we still measure the overall width as 60 feet. So it's kind of like a combination. There's two 12-foot curb cuts that enter into the driveway, but we still have to count the whole width of that space from the right to the left as part of the driveway.
Well, I understand that. This is the description, well, the application says install 24 feet of pavement, and the description in this document I have here says
The
12
ad
feet.
should be correct, because it is two 12-foot wide curb cuts. So to enter from the public right-of-way on Amherst Street into the Nelson's private property, there are two separate 12-foot wide curb cuts. That in and of itself is okay, but we still have to count the overall width of the driveway as 60 feet wide, because we still count the overall width of the driveway within the front yard setback.
Okay, so when the motion is made, it should be to request 60 feet.
Correct.
Okay, not 24.
That's why we had it kind of itemized in the advertisement, that there's a 12-foot existing curb cut.
Right.
Right now, they want an additional 12-foot wide curb cut, which leads to that 60-foot wide opening that's all within the public, it's all within
Yeah.
the front yard setback.
Okay, I got it, thank you. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Boucher? Any questions?
Mr. Nelson, just tell me, what alternatives, that you have besides just leaving it the way it is. What alternatives would you have, and what would that cause you if you couldn't do this? So what I'm looking for
I'm sorry,
is,
was that a question for me?
so do you understand the question? So basically, what alternatives did you look at, and were they feasible?
So the alternative would be to create two different driveways. None of them will create a U. We talked with the driveway, a few different driveway companies about creating a cut on Amherst Street and another on Sullivan Street. All are going to create the way that any front road is considered a front setback. So there's no solution that we came up with. Even if we were to move a separate driveway to the Sullivan Street side, as you can imagine, folks whipping from Amherst Street to Sullivan Street does not create a safe condition there either. So it was our discussion with ultimately Champion Paving at the end of this this was the least option to get what we needed to be able to get onto the property and off the property safely.
So, can I continue?
Certainly.
So the existing driveway is not, so basically what you're saying is the existing driveway is not adequate for the needs now with the extra vehicles that you intend to have?
I apologize, it's a little bit choppy on my end.
So the
the existing driveway, correct, it does not create enough space to actually turn a vehicle around. Right now, we have two vehicles that we're managing it. I reverse into the property and then able to settle into a spot. My wife will pull in and then pull out around my vehicle. If there's any other vehicles, which would be the intention, will not be able to have. We'll be moving cars onto Amherst Street on a regular basis.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nelson, piggybacking on Mr. Boucher's question and comment, there's the driveway now, but there's a lot of area once you go up into the driveway. Is there the ability to pave any of that area so that you could pull in, turn a vehicle around, and then be able to come out facing Amherst Street rather than backing up onto Amherst Street? And in lieu of making a 60-foot wide driveway that has to be counted that way, if there was no other curb cut, then maybe there wouldn't have to be a consideration of a 60-foot driveway. Was that a thought?
Yeah, we looked at a plan that involved, so right now there's the single 12-foot curb cut, creating the additional 12-foot curb cut, and instead of having that connection be 24 feet to make it 12 feet so that one vehicle could get by, we did look at that as a plan. We're trying to avoid, so on the map area where you see new green space, that's the existing sort of area to do the U-turns and make all that work. To go any deeper into the property really is just creating driveway into the back of the property. And it's a pretty small yard to begin with, so we're trying to avoid creating a concrete playground for our kids. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't, but it does. Okay, I don't have any other questions. There's nobody here to speak, and
Nobody else on Zoom.
there's nobody else on Zoom, so I will state for the record that there's nobody present to speak in favor, there's nobody on Zoom to speak in favor, there's nobody physically present to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition, and there's nobody on Zoom to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition. So I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher.
So, obviously, when I first saw this, it was a bit of
Yeah.
concern, but then, knowing it's Amherst Street, I went down Amherst Street, and we all know, because we've talked about other properties there, and we've done some stuff. And I drove by the property several times, and I could just imagine how challenging it is, and, how challenging it is at rush hour. So I think, I believe that there is a special condition to the property is its location on the busy road. Why I was asking the applicant, I just wanted to get from the applicant that, this is not a huge piece of property, right? And I can see where, we don't want to, where creating more pavement in the backyard is just kind of losing the green space. So I'm tending to support the application because of the unique situation of the location of the home and the depth of the property is not as deep as other properties. And I don't think it's unreasonable to be, wanting to park 3 or 4 cars. I think, again, it's, again, the option, certainly there's other options, but it's going to take away from kind of the other part of the enjoyment of the home. So I think that because of that unique situation with the location of the property where it is, I think I'm going to support the application. And also for, again, basically based on safety also.
Mr. Lionel.
I have nothing to add to Mr. Boucher's comments. I do support the application.
And, coincidence or not, I was on Amherst Street today. It was maybe about 20 to 12, and the light was red right coming from Broad Street, and the traffic was backed up just about to this man's house on Sullivan Street. And I know because I was looking, and there's the big variance sign there, so you could see it, and I said to myself, this causes an issue. So you were right, Mr. Boucher, when you said coming in and out of this is a nightmare. I mean, you could think about widening the 12-foot to 24-foot, instead of then not having to count as a 60-foot, but then he'd have to lose all the green space by putting a pad there so they could turn around. So it just is the same nightmare for these people, and with young drivers just coming out, I understand the safety issue. I think we all do. So yeah, I think like both of you ahead of me, I'm in favor of this application.
Did we want to entertain any, I'm just bringing up, special condition of, after this is done, to remove the existing driveway where he wants to turn into green space? Or just leave it as is? Because it could end up just being all pavement if we didn't remove the old driveway.
But then
I'm just following.
does it say, does it say anywhere that he was going to,
Yes.
that's the intent?
Yes.
To remove the old driveway?
Yeah, it's in the.
Okay,
plan.
then if it's in there, then I think probably when the motion is made, it should be addressed.
Can I ask a question?
Sure you can.
So, Mr. Falk, would that be appropriate or not appropriate to make a special condition like that, or is it against, they could pave whatever they want?
I mean, if they say they're gonna do it already, do we need to say it again?
I'm not, yeah, I'm just curious.
The only real issue would be, it wouldn't be the driveway, actually, because it's past the front yard setback. The only thing we would really look at is the open space requirement, and the RA zone, it's 35%. So I think we did the calculation based on the fact that the driveway would be removed.
Okay.
I don't have the numbers, but I think they're probably okay with the 35%, if it stays there.
If it stays there, it's close, but it's probably okay.
I think it's probably okay, but.
So I'll make a motion without it, and, okay, all right.
Before you make the motion, and I'm looking at this, the email between yourself and Mark Jennings, is that something that needs to be, okay, then I'm fine. Moving on. Thank you, Mr. Boucher.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the area variance for Sean and Laura Nelson, owners of 35 Sullivan Street, sheet 61, lot 112, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-17, Section E, to exceed maximum driveway width, a maximum of 24-foot permitted, 12 feet existing on Amherst Street, an additional 12-foot wide curb opening proposed on Amherst Street, leading to a 60-foot wide driveway located within a front yard setback to the RA Zoning Board 2. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, the special conditions is that the location of the home on Amherst Street, the busy road, the safety factor involved, and the fact that the property does not have a lot of depth, so this is the most reasonable way to be able to enter and exit the property safely. We find it is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We find it will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. We find it's not contrary to public interest, and we find that substantial justice would be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. Mr. Nelson, the application for variance has been granted. Congratulations. As you are aware, any person has the right to appeal any decision made by this board. They have up to 30 days with which to do so. Should you have any questions, comments, concerns, please re-refer back to Mr. Carter Falk or Ms. Kate Poirier in the planning department. Other than that, thank you for your application and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome, and I hope your son is okay.
Thank you again.
Thanks. Okay. Any further business? We have no motions for rehearing. The upcoming agenda, does anybody see any regional impact?
Well, the 40 Groton Road, we've said that there was regional impact of that one before.
Yeah, we'll notify below in Mass.
Other than that, I don't see any.
Okay. So 40 Groton Road. And then we have minutes.
Mr. Boucher, did you have a comment on regional impact?
Oh, no, I agree.
No,
I
he-
don't see.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but I'm just trying to,
So no.
yeah, but
Well,
yeah.
40 Groton Road's
for
coming
four-
back.
Yes.
Yeah. Other than
And that had already been determined.
Yeah.
So that's categorically stated. Okay. And minutes. Any adjustments to the minutes? I mean, are they good?
I didn't see anything.
And Mr. Boucher, you didn't either?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the July 26, 2022 minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. And Mr. Boucher, how do you vote?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
And Mr. Lionel, how do you vote?
Mr. Lionel votes in favor.
And I will vote in favor of the minutes so that we have a quorum. Thank you. Other than that, it's 7:49.
Motion to adjourn.
We are good. Okay, we're out.